The starship Endurance floated in the darkness of space like a small metal island. It was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was important. Today, it would meet the Valdori Empire for the first time. Ambassador Kyle Bennett stood near the main airlock and tried to keep his hand steady. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 20 years talking to aliens, making deals, and keeping peace. But the Valdori were different. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had ships that could destroy planets. They had technology that humans could only dream about. And they had finally agreed to talk. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Kyle watched as the Valdori delegation walked in. They were beautiful in a cold way. Their skin was silver blue, like metal mixed with ice. Their eyes were completely black, like polished stones. They moved with perfect grace, each step exactly the same as the last. Their leader was called High Envoy Scythrax. He was taller than the others, and he wore robes made of some material that seemed to change color when he moved. He looked at Kyle the way a person might look at a small bug. "Ambassador Bennett," Scythrax said. His voice came through a translator device on his collar. "We thank you for this meeting. The Valdori Empire is curious about your species." Kyle noticed the pause before the word curious. He understood what it really meant. The Valdori were not curious. They were amused. Humanity was a joke to them, a young species that had only been traveling between stars for 200 years. "We are honored by your presence," Kyle said carefully. "The people of Earth hope this will be the beginning of a long friendship." Scythrax made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes, friendship. Of course." He turned to the other Valdori and said something in their own language. They all smiled in a way that made Kyle feel cold inside. "We have brought a gift," Scythrax announced, "a symbol of our generosity toward your people." He waved his hand, and 2 Valdori guards stepped forward. They were dragging something between them. No, not something. Someone. They threw the figure onto the floor at Kyle's feet. It was a young Valdori female. She had the same silver-blue skin as the others, but hers was covered in scars. Long white lines crossed her arms and face, like someone had tried to draw a map on her body. Her left leg was bent at a wrong angle, twisted in a way that made Kyle's stomach turn. She was thin, too thin, and she did not look up from the floor. "This is Princess Vela of the Third House," Scythrax said. His voice was full of pleasure. "She was injured in our succession wars. Her leg was broken and healed badly. She cannot walk properly. She cannot run. She cannot fight." He paused and smiled wider. "She is useless to us. Perhaps your primitive species can find some use for her. A pet maybe, or a servant." The other Valdori laughed. The sound was sharp and cruel. Kyle felt anger rise in his chest like fire. He wanted to say something harsh. He wanted to throw the insult back in their faces. But he had been a diplomat for 20 years. He knew that angry words would only make things worse. So instead, he did something that surprised everyone in the room, including himself. He knelt down next to the broken princess. "We accept your gift," he said quietly, "with gratitude." Scythrax's smile flickered. This was not the reaction he had expected. He had wanted to see the humans get angry. He had wanted to watch them refuse and demand respect. Their calm acceptance confused him. "Very well," Scythrax said after a moment. "Then our business is done. Contact you again when we have need of your species." The Valdori delegation turned and walked back toward the airlock. Their laughter echoed through the metal hallways as they left. Kyle waited until the airlock closed behind them. Then he looked down at the young female, still lying on the floor. "Can you understand me?" he asked softly. She nodded once. The movement was small, almost invisible. "My name is Kyle. I am going to help you stand up now. Is that okay?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, The princess raised her head and looked at him. Her eyes were black, like all Valdori eyes, but there was something different in them, something that burned beneath the surface. Kyle had seen that look before, in soldiers who had survived terrible battles, in prisoners who had been freed after years of suffering. It was a look of pain that had been transformed into something else. It was rage. Pure, patient, endless rage. "Yes," she whispered. Her voice was rough, like she had not used it in a long time. Kyle helped her stand. She was lighter than he expected, and she leaned heavily on him to keep her balance. Her damaged leg could barely hold any weight at all. A medical officer named Lucy Palmer rushed forward with a hover chair. "Sir, we should get her to the medical bay immediately. Her leg needs—" "I know," Kyle said. He helped the princess into the chair. She did not resist, but she also did not relax. Every muscle in her body was tight with tension. As Lucy pushed the chair toward the medical bay, Kyle walked beside it. He noticed that the princess was looking around at everything: the walls, the lights, the humans walking past. She was studying them all with those burning black eyes. "Why did you accept me?" she asked suddenly. Her voice was stronger now, though still quiet. "They gave me to you as an insult. You must know that." Kyle considered the question carefully. "Yes," he said, "I know." "Then why?" They reached the medical bay doors. Kyle stopped and turned to look at her directly. "Because humans do not see the world the way your people do," he said. "The Valdori look at you and see something broken, something worthless." He paused. "But humans have a saying, 'What does not kill you makes you stronger.'" The princess stared at him. Her expression did not change, but something shifted in those dark eyes. A tiny spark of something that might have been hope or might have been curiosity. "I do not understand," she said. Kyle smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen much darkness in the universe and had learned to find light anyway. "You will," he said. "Give us time, Princess Vela. We are going to show you exactly what humans do with broken things." He stepped back as the medical bay doors opened, and Lucy pushed the chair inside. Just before the doors closed again, Kyle saw the princess turn her head to look at him one more time. And for the first time since she had been thrown at his feet, he saw her lips move into something that was almost a smile. It was not a warm smile. It was not a gentle smile. It was the smile of a blade being sharpened. 3 months had passed since Princess Vela came aboard the Endurance. The medical team had done what they could for her leg, but the bones had healed wrong long ago. They could not fix it completely. She would never walk normally again. At least, that is what the Valdori would have said. The humans had a different plan. Master Sergeant Nina Alvarez stood in a cargo bay that had been turned into a training room. She was a short woman with brown skin and muscles like steel cables. Her black hair was cut very short, and her eyes missed nothing. She had spent 15 years teaching soldiers how to fight and survive. She had seen every kind of warrior, from the strongest to the weakest. But she had never trained an alien before. Vela stood in the center of the room, leaning on a metal crutch. The human doctors had given her medicine that helped with the pain, and they had built a special brace for her leg that gave her some support. But she was still slow. She was still weak. Nina walked in a circle around her, studying every detail. "Your people think you are broken," Nina said. Her voice was calm but hard. "Tell me why." Vela kept her eyes forward. "I cannot walk properly. I cannot run. Valdori combat is based on speed and grace. We dance around our enemies. We strike with elegance." She paused. "Without my leg, I cannot dance. Without the dance, I am nothing." Nina stopped in front of her. "That is what they told you. That is not what I asked. I asked what you think." Vela was silent for a long moment. No one had ever asked her that question before. In the Valdori Empire, her opinion did not matter. She was damaged goods. She was trash. I think, she said slowly, that I want to hurt them. Everyone who laughed at me, everyone who threw me away, everyone who looked at me like I was garbage. Her hands tightened on her crutch. I want to make them pay. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator. Good, she said. Now we can begin. The training started that day, and did not stop. Nina was not a gentle teacher. She pushed Vela hard, sometimes too hard. There were days when Vela fell down and could not get up. There were days when she wanted to quit. But she never did. Nina taught her things that no Valdori warrior would ever learn. She taught her how to fight dirty, how to strike at weak points, how to use pain as a weapon, both giving and receiving. Humans are not graceful, Nina explained one day, showing Vela how to break someone's arm in 3 different ways. We are ugly fighters. We bite, we scratch, we kick people when they are down, and we never, ever stop. Vela learned to use her crutch as a weapon. The human engineers made her a new one out of strong metal. It could block a sword. It could crack bones. It could kill if she swung it hard enough. Your leg is not a weakness, Nina told her. It is a trap. People see it and they think you are helpless. They drop their guard, and then you destroy them. Vela also learned human weapons. The Valdori used plasma blades and energy shields, beautiful weapons that glowed with power. Human weapons were different. They were simple. Metal and chemicals and explosives. They did not glow. They did not look elegant. But they worked. Nina put a human pistol in Vela's hands for the first time. It was heavy and cold. Point it at the target, Nina said. Pull the trigger. Vela did. The gun roared and jumped in her hands. A hole appeared in the target across the room. Again, Nina said. Vela fired again, and again, and again. By the end of the week, she could hit a target from 30 meters away, without missing once. But the training was not only about fighting. Kyle Bennett came to see her often, and they would talk for hours. He taught her about human history, about human philosophy, about the way humans thought. The Valdori throw away anything that is not perfect, Kyle said one evening. They were sitting in his office, drinking a hot brown liquid that humans called coffee. Vela had learned to like it. If something is broken, they get rid of it. If someone is weak, they abandon them. That is the way of strength, Vela said. It was what she had been taught all her life. The weak pull down the strong. They must be removed. Kyle shook his head. That is one way of thinking, but humans have a different idea. What idea? Kyle leaned forward. We believe that broken things can be fixed, that weak things can become strong, that the worst experiences in life can make you better, not worse. He paused. We call it resilience, the ability to be knocked down and get back up, to be broken and put yourself back together. Every time you do that, you become a little bit harder, a little bit tougher, a little bit more dangerous. Vela thought about this for a long time. The succession wars almost killed me, she said finally. My own family tried to destroy me. I survived, but I was left like this. She touched her damaged leg. Broken, useless. No, Kyle said. You survived. That is not useless. That is proof of strength that your people were too blind to see. He reached out and put his hand on her shoulder. You have already been through fire, Vela. You have already been broken and put back together. Now we are just going to sharpen you into a weapon. Weeks turned into months. Vela grew stronger. Her arms became thick with muscle. Her reflexes became fast, even if her legs stayed slow. She learned to compensate. She learned to adapt. Nina added more training. Hand-to-hand combat, knife fighting, tactics and strategy. How to read an enemy. How to find weakness. How to exploit it without mercy. The Valdori fight with honor, Nina said. They have rules. They have codes. They would never attack someone who was not ready. They would never use tricks or traps. She leaned close. Humans do not fight with honor. We fight to win, we fight to survive, and we will use every dirty trick in the book to do it. One day, almost a year after she had arrived, Vela sparred with Nina for the first time, without holding back. They fought for 20 minutes. At the end, Nina was on the ground, with Vela's metal crutch pressed against her throat. Nina laughed and pushed the crutch away. "Good," she said. "You are ready." Vela helped her teacher stand up. "Ready for what?" Nina grinned. "Ready to go back. Ready to show those blue-skinned bastards what happens when they throw their garbage at humanity. Ready to make them regret the day they ever met us." Vela looked down at her hands. They were covered in scars, both old and new. Her body was a map of pain, but it was also a weapon now. A weapon that the Valdori had created and then thrown away. A weapon that was now pointed back at them. "Yes," Vela said. Her voice was cold and calm. "I am ready." The Valdori homeworld was called Valdris Prime. It was a beautiful planet covered in white cities that glowed like stars against the dark blue land. The buildings were tall and thin, made of a crystal material that sang when the wind blew through them. Everything was perfect. Everything was elegant. Princess Vela stood at the window of the human shuttle and looked down at it. She had been born on this planet. She had grown up in those white towers. She had learned to walk on those crystal streets. And she had almost died here, in the succession wars that had crippled her and destroyed her future. "Are you all right?" Kyle asked. He stood beside her, wearing his formal ambassador uniform. "Yes," Vela said, but her hands were shaking slightly. She pressed them against her legs to make them stop. "I did not think I would ever see this place again." "Are you having second thoughts?" She was different now than she had been a year ago. Her body was harder, stronger. She stood straighter, even with her damaged leg. Her eyes, which had once been full of shame and pain, now burned with something much more dangerous. "No," she said, "I am not having second thoughts. I am having thoughts about what I am going to do to them." Kyle nodded. He did not smile, but there was approval in his eyes. The shuttle landed at the Grand Palace of the Valdori Empire. A crowd had gathered to watch the human delegation arrive. They were curious about the primitive species that had been amusing their empire for the past year. They expected to see simple creatures, barely civilized. They were not prepared for what they saw. Kyle walked out first, as was proper for an ambassador. But Vela walked right behind him, and she did not try to hide. Whispers ran through the crowd like fire through dry grass. They recognized her. She had been a princess of the third house, one of the great families. She had been famous once, before her injuries, before her shame. But she looked different now. She walked with a strange metal brace on her leg that made soft whirring sounds with each step. She did not use a crutch anymore, though she still had a slight limp. Her body was thick with muscle that Valdori females never developed. She looked less like a princess and more like a soldier. She looked dangerous. High Envoy Sithrax was waiting for them at the top of the palace steps. His black eyes widened when he saw Vela, and for just a moment his perfect calm cracked. "Ambassador Bennett," he said, recovering quickly, "we did not expect you to bring your pet." The insult was clear. Vela did not react. She had learned patience from Nina. She had learned to wait for the right moment. "Princess Vela is not my pet," Kyle said calmly. "She is a member of my diplomatic staff, and she has a message for your empire." Sithrax made a dismissive sound. "What message could a broken cripple possibly have for us?" Vela stepped forward. Every Valdori guard in the area tensed. Their hands moved toward their weapons. But Vela just stood there, perfectly still. "I challenge you, Sithrax," she said. Her voice was clear and cold. "Under the old laws of the Empire, single combat, for honor." The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then Sithrax laughed. "You," he said, "challenge me? You can barely walk, little cripple. You cannot be serious." "I am completely serious," Vela said. "The old laws say that any member of a noble house can challenge any other noble. I am still a princess of the third house. You are a noble of the first house. The challenge is valid." Sithrax's laughter faded. He looked around at the crowd watching them. Thousands of Valdori eyes stared back. They were waiting to see what he would do. If he refused, he would look like a coward. The entire empire would know that the mighty High Envoy was afraid of a crippled princess. His reputation would be destroyed. But if he accepted— "She cannot even fight," Sithrax said. "This is a joke." "Then you have nothing to worry about," Kyle said smoothly. "Accept the challenge. Defeat her easily. Prove to everyone that she is as worthless as you said." Sithrax's black eyes narrowed. He was trapped, and he knew it. The humans had set this up perfectly. "Very well," he said finally. "I accept your challenge, Princess Vela. Tomorrow, the Arena of Ancestors. I will enjoy killing you." Vela smiled. It was not a nice smile. "You can try." That night, Vela could not sleep. She lay in her quarters on the human shuttle, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow she might die. Sithrax was one of the best fighters in the Empire. He had killed dozens of opponents in the arena. But she was not afraid. Kyle came to see her late in the night. He brought 2 cups of coffee and sat beside her bed. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Yes," Vela said. She took the coffee and held it in her hands, feeling the warmth. "But I need you to know something." "What?" "If I die tomorrow, I want you to keep going. Find others like me. Other broken pieces that the Valdori threw away. Train them. Make them strong." She looked at him with those burning eyes. "Build an army of the things they thought were worthless, and use that army to make them pay." Kyle was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "You are not going to die tomorrow," he said. "You do not know that." "No," Kyle agreed. "I do not know that for certain. But I know you, Vela. I have seen what you became." He reached out and took her hand. "The Valdori see you, and still think you are the same broken girl they threw away. They are wrong. You are something else now, something they have never faced before." "What am I?" Kyle smiled. "You are human, maybe not by blood, but by training, by spirit, by the fire we put inside you." He squeezed her hand. "And humans do not lose to people who underestimate them." Vela held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. For not throwing me away like they did." "Thank us by winning," Kyle said. "And then thank us by helping us change the galaxy." He stood up and walked to the door. Before he left, he turned back one more time. "Sleep well, Princess," he said. "Tomorrow you become legend." The door closed behind him. Vela lay back and closed her eyes. Her hands were no longer shaking. Her heart was calm and steady. Tomorrow she would face the monster who had laughed at her. Tomorrow she would show the entire Valdori Empire what happens when you throw away something dangerous. Tomorrow she would fight. The Arena of Ancestors was the most sacred place in the Valdori Empire. It was a massive circle carved from living crystal, surrounded by seats that rose up like the walls of a canyon. The crystal was thousands of years old. It had seen emperors fight for their thrones. It had seen heroes rise and legends die. Today, it was packed with more Valdori than it had ever held before. Word had spread across the planet in hours. The broken princess had returned. She had challenged High Envoy Sithrax to single combat. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Most of them expected to watch her die quickly, but still, they came. Still they wanted to witness it. In a small room beneath the arena, Vela prepared herself. She wore simple black clothing made by the human engineers. It was light and tough, designed to let her move freely while protecting her from minor cuts. On her damaged leg, the metal brace hummed softly as she stretched and tested it. Nina stood beside her, checking her weapons one last time. "Remember," Nina said, "he will expect you to fight like a Valdori, fast, graceful, dancing around him. Do not do that." "I know," Vela said. "He will try to end it quickly. He does not want to look like he is struggling against a cripple. He will come at you hard and fast in the first few seconds. Let him." "Let him?" Vela asked. Nina grinned. "Let him commit. Let him think he has you, and then show him what you really are." Vela nodded. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. "What if I lose?" she asked quietly. Nina looked at her for a long moment. Then she put her hands on Vela's shoulders. "You will not lose," she said, "because you are fighting for something bigger than just yourself. You are fighting for every person they ever threw away, every broken thing they ever called worthless, every piece of garbage they kicked aside because it was not perfect." Her grip tightened. "Win this fight, and you change everything. You prove that their whole way of thinking is wrong. You show the entire galaxy that the things they consider trash can rise up and destroy them." Vela took a deep breath. Then she smiled, and it was a cold, hard smile. "Then I will win," she said. The doors opened. The roar of the crowd hit her like a physical force. She walked forward, her metal brace whirring with each step, and entered the arena. The crystal floor was smooth under her feet. The light from the sun above made everything glow with an eerie blue color. Across the arena, she saw Sithrax enter from the opposite side. He looked magnificent. He wore armor that covered his chest but left his arms and legs free for movement. His silver-blue skin gleamed in the light. In his hand, he carried a plasma blade, a weapon that burned with energy so hot it could cut through metal. He was smiling. He was confident. He was certain he would win. Vela stopped in the center of the arena and waited. An elder Valdori, the Arbiter, stepped forward to speak the ritual words. "This is a challenge of honor, fought according to the ancient laws. The combat ends when one fighter is dead or yields. May the ancestors watch over this contest." He stepped back. "Begin." Sithrax moved immediately. He was fast, faster than any human could ever be. His body blurred across the arena, his plasma blade leaving a trail of burning light behind him. He struck at Vela with a graceful sweep that should have cut her in half. But Vela was not there anymore. She had dropped low, letting the blade pass over her head. Her bad legs screamed with pain as she pushed off the crystal floor. She did not need to be graceful. She just needed to be close enough. Her hand came up. In it was the human pistol that Nina had trained her to use. She fired. The bullet hit Sithrax in the shoulder. It was a simple thing, just a small piece of metal moving very fast, but it tore through his elegant armor like paper. Blood sprayed across the crystal floor. Sithrax stumbled. His face showed complete shock. This was not how Valdori fought. There were supposed to be rules. There was supposed to be honor. You did not just shoot someone with a primitive weapon like a coward. The crowd was silent. No one knew how to react. "What is this?" Sithrax shouted. Blood dripped from his wounded shoulder. "This is not combat, this is—" Vela fired again. The bullet hit his knee. He fell forward, catching himself with his good arm. "This is how humans fight," Vela said. Her voice was calm. "They taught me that winning is the only thing that matters. There is no honor in death. There is no glory in losing. There is only victory and defeat." She walked toward him slowly. Her metal brace whirred with each step. She was not running. She was not dancing. She was just walking, steady and unstoppable. Sithrax tried to raise his plasma blade, His arm was shaking from pain and blood loss, but he was still dangerous. He swung the weapon at her with all his remaining strength. Vela caught the blade on her metal brace. Sparks flew as plasma met human engineering. The brace was designed for this. It was built to resist heat and energy. Then she twisted her leg and broke his grip. The plasma blade went flying across the arena. Scythrax looked up at her. For the first time, she saw fear in his black eyes. Real fear. The fear of a predator who had suddenly realized he was the prey. "Yield," Vela said. "I am High Envoy of the Valdori Empire. I do not yield to broken trash like—" She shot him in the other knee. He screamed and collapsed completely. Now he was lying on the crystal floor, bleeding from 3 wounds, unable to stand or fight. Vela walked over to him and placed the barrel of her pistol against his forehead. "Yield," she said again. The arena was completely silent. Thousands of Valdori stared down at the scene. Their perfect High Envoy, one of the greatest warriors in the Empire, was lying in a pool of his own blood. The crippled princess they had thrown away like garbage was standing over him with a primitive weapon pressed to his head. Scythrax closed his eyes. His body shook with rage and humiliation. "I yield," he whispered. Vela did not move. She kept the gun against his head for a long moment. Part of her wanted to pull the trigger anyway. Part of her wanted to kill him for everything he had done, everything he had said, every time he had laughed at her. But that was not the plan. She stepped back and lowered her weapon. "The challenge is complete," she said loudly, so everyone in the arena could hear. "I have won." The silence continued for several heartbeats. Then, from the small section where the human delegation was sitting, a sound rose up. Cheering. Kyle Bennett was on his feet, clapping and shouting. Nina was beside him, grinning like a wolf. Lucy Palmer was crying with joy. All the humans were celebrating. And slowly, one by one, the Valdori in the crowd began to react. Not with cheering. With whispers and murmurs and looks of confusion and wonder. Because they had just seen something impossible. They had just seen something broken become something unstoppable. Vela stood in the center of the arena, covered in her enemy's blood, and she did not smile. This was not a time for smiling. This was just the beginning. She looked up at the crowd and let them see her clearly. Let them see her scars. Let them see her damaged leg. Let them see everything the Valdori Empire had called worthless. Then she turned and walked out of the arena, steady and strong. Behind her, Scythrax lay bleeding on the ancient crystal floor. The age of the perfect Valdori was over. The age of the broken had begun. The news of Vela's victory spread through the Valdori Empire like wildfire through a dry forest. Within hours, every planet in their territory knew what had happened. The unbeatable High Envoy had been defeated. The broken princess they had thrown away like garbage had returned and destroyed him. The Empire did not know how to react. Nothing like this had ever happened before. For Vela, the days after the fight were strange. She stayed on the human shuttle while Kyle handled the diplomatic aftermath. The Valdori government was in chaos. Some wanted to arrest her. Some wanted to pretend the fight had never happened. Some wanted to know how she had become so different. But none of them could ignore her anymore. On the 3rd day after the fight, Kyle came to her quarters with news. "The 3rd House has contacted us," he said. "Your family." Vela looked up from the book she was reading. It was a human book, a history of wars on Earth. She had read many such books in the past year. They helped her understand how humans thought. "What do they want?" she asked. "They want you back. They are saying they made a mistake. They want to restore you to your position as princess." Vela was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her family. She thought about her brothers and sisters who had tried to kill her in the succession wars. She thought about her parents, who had let her be given away as an insult to aliens. "No," she said finally. Kyle nodded. He did not look surprised. "I thought you might say that. What do you want to do instead?" Vela put down her book and stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "When I was lying broken after the succession wars," she said slowly, "I thought my life was over. I thought I had no purpose. I was just waiting to die." She turned to face Kyle. "But you showed me something different. You showed me that broken things can become weapons, that the pieces everyone throws away can be put together into something dangerous." "Yes," Kyle said, "we did. I am not the only one." Vela's voice was harder now. "The Valdori throw away hundreds of people like me every year. Princes and princesses who are injured, nobles who are born wrong, warriors who become crippled. They are all sent away, abandoned, forgotten." Her hands tightened into fists. "I want to find them. I want to train them. I want to build an army of the broken." Kyle studied her carefully. "And then what?" Vela smiled. It was the same cold smile she had worn in the arena, standing over Scythrax's bleeding body. "And then," she said, "we will show the Empire what happens when you throw away dangerous things. We will make them understand that their perfect system is built on lies, that the people they call worthless are actually the strongest of all." "That sounds like a revolution," Kyle said. "Maybe it is. Or maybe it is just justice." Vela walked over to him and put her hand on his arm. "Will you help me?" Kyle did not answer right away. He looked at her for a long time. Then he nodded. "Humanity has a lot of experience with revolutions," he said, "and we have a lot of experience with helping the underdog win." He smiled slightly. "Yes, Vela, we will help you." Over the next few months, the work began. Kyle used his diplomatic connections to find information. Nina trained new recruits as they arrived. Lucy set up medical facilities to help the injured become strong again. And Vela traveled. She went to the places where the broken were sent, the distant moons and forgotten stations where the Valdori Empire dumped its imperfect children. She found them in prisons and hospitals and slums. She found them hiding in shadows, ashamed of what they were. She told them her story. She showed them her scars. She proved to them that being broken was not the end. "They threw me away too," she would say. "They called me worthless. They laughed at me. But I came back, and I beat them. I beat them because humans taught me something the Valdori do not understand. Pain does not make you weak. Pain makes you strong. Every scar on your body is proof that you survived something that tried to destroy you." Some of them did not believe her at first. They had been told their whole lives that they were garbage. It was hard to accept that the lies were wrong. But slowly, one by one, they joined her. A prince with a damaged arm that would never hold a sword again. He learned to use human firearms instead. A princess who had been born blind. She learned to fight by sound and touch, becoming more deadly than any warrior who relied on eyes. A noble who had lost his legs in an accident. He received human mechanical legs that were stronger than any Valdori limbs had ever been. They called themselves the Broken Legion. It started as a joke, a way to throw the insults back at the Empire. But it became something more. It became a badge of honor, a mark of pride. By the end of the first year, the Broken Legion had 50 members. By the end of the second year, it had 500. By the end of the third year, it had grown into an army of thousands. The Valdori Empire began to worry. Vela stood on the bridge of her new ship, looking out at the fleet that had gathered around her. It was a small fleet by Empire standards, but it was growing every day. And more importantly, every person on every ship had a personal reason to hate the perfect system that had rejected them. Kyle walked up beside her. The Empire is sending messages, he said. They want to negotiate. They are afraid. Good, Vela said. They should be afraid. What will you tell them? Vela turned to face him. The scars on her face glowed slightly in the light from the stars. Her eyes burned with the same fire he had seen on that first day, when she had been thrown at his feet like garbage. But she was not garbage anymore. She was something else entirely. I will tell them that their empire is built on lies, she said. I will tell them that their perfect system creates more enemies than it destroys. I will tell them that every person they throw away is a weapon pointed back at their hearts. She looked back out at the stars. And I will tell them that this is their last chance to change. Their last chance to stop being cruel. Their last chance to understand what humanity taught me. What is that? Kyle asked, though he already knew the answer. Vela smiled. It was still not a warm smile. It was still the smile of a blade. But there was something else in it now. Something like hope. That nothing is ever truly broken, she said. It can only be reshaped. And the things that have been reshaped through fire are the strongest things in the universe. She put her hand on the window, looking out at her fleet of broken warriors. They gave me to you as a joke, she said softly. You gave me back as a weapon. Kyle stood beside her, watching the stars. And now? He asked. Vela turned to face him one last time. Her eyes burned bright. Now, she said, I am going to use that weapon. And the galaxy will never be the same. The ship moved forward into the darkness of space. The Broken Legion followed behind their princess. And somewhere in the distance, the perfect Valdori Empire waited in fear for what was coming. The end was not near. The end had already begun.